Hello, welcome to Microfiche Microphone. I'm Micah, and on this channel we look at microfiche from the past, old newspaper articles in the public domain. We look at them with our modern eyes, our modern perspective, and see what we can learn from them. On this microfiche time capsule, we are looking back at the Improvement era from October 1932, and this article is entitled Greatness in Men, Melvin J. Ballard by Bryant S. Hinckley. So this is a continuation of our series, the Greatness in Men series. And, but Melvin J. Ballard, what do I know about him? I know that he's written a book or two. I can't recall the names of the books. And I'm fairly certain that he's the father of M. Russell Ballard, whose name was also Melvin Russell Ballard. And because his father went by Melvin, he went by Russell. So Melvin J. Ballard, went by Melvin Ballard, and then Melvin Russell Ballard went by Russell Ballard. And that's why his name is often listed as M. Russell Ballard. Yeah. I'm fairly certain anyway. Not 100%, but I think that that's right. But as for his life, I don't know that much about him. I want to say that he served a mission in Europe, but I'm not 100% sure. So these are just things that I feel like are true about him, but I'm not sure. So let's find out how many of them were real and how many of them I mixed up with someone else. So, all right, let's take a look. First, there's a little quote at the beginning. Thousands have enjoyed the magic of Elder Melvin J. Ballard's golden voice in both song and sermon. President Hinckley has made his article glow with the same spirit which accompanies the speaking of the subject of this article. Well, that's better than the last blurb we had last time, where there was like, well, President Hinckley makes it appear that, like in this one it's like, oh, no, it's the same kind of a feeling as his speeches, which he gives a lot of because he speaks in General Conference every year, yeah? I'll go where you want me to go, dear Lord, over mountain or plain or sea. I'll say what you want me to say, dear Lord, I'll be what you want me to be. That's from a song called I'll Go Where You Want Me to Go. It's one of the hymns in the hymn book. Also, there's a picture. So this is him. I think he has kind of a distinguished look. I think it's, sweeping his hair backwards like that. I don't know if he was trying to cover a bald spot or not, but it definitely makes him look a little bit, like, sophisticated, a little bit James Bondish, if you will, just from the hair, I guess. But the expression, I think, looks really friendly and open kind of a person. So, anyway, very put-together person. All right, these words are typical of the life and service of Apostle Melvin J. Ballard, who at a general conference several years ago sang them with great effect. Did he really? His voice and life ringing true to the sentiments they express. He sang a solo. I mean, that requires a lot of confidence in your own singing ability, and it also requires a lot of confidence in, like, the audience taking it well, Not all audiences will take something like that well in the middle of a speech. That's really interesting to me, that he just randomly sang a song while he was giving a talk. I haven't found the talk, but if I do, I will link it in the description below. Yeah. He had all the qualities of a great orator: command of himself, warm sympathy, responsive intellect, splendid repartee, the power to flash. What does that mean? The language of the people, a wonderful magnetism, and an earnestness that made him the unconscious hero of the cause he espoused, was said of Wendell Phillips. What? These words need neither modification nor abridgment when applied to Melvin J. Ballard, who is preeminently a preacher, a crusader for righteousness, a gifted and eloquent evangelist. I hate it when they use quotes that are talking about something completely different to apply to somebody else. Like, if it's a famous quote, sure. I don't think this one is, though. I mean, have you ever heard it before? Ugh. His dauntless courage, his fine personality, the tone and quality of his spirituality, his zeal for the truth, his love for humanity, his settled and supreme faith in the restored gospel, his radiant and glorious conception of its meaning and mission combined to make him one of the most popular and powerful exponents of the truth in this dispensation. He is a spiritual leader. All his admonitions and exhortations are permeated with hope and abound with good cheer. His words impart comfort, banish doubt, inspire confidence. There is no indecision in his action. He is practical, patient, prudent, progressive, and at the same time, fearless. Melvin J. Ballard is a man of prophetic vision and deep spirituality, which is controlled by a well-balanced mind. His poise and sanity impart confidence to all that he says. There is something majestic in his conception of religion, and something altogether satisfying in the exalted place which he gives man in the cosmic universe. He is, we repeat, a spiritual leader, much sought after as a speaker, and consequently addresses a great many people, probably more than any other man in the church. It is pleasant to listen to him. He has a clear, musical, well-modulated voice, with an unusual carrying capacity, a fluency and native eloquence which, backed by a sublime, exalted faith in the cause to which he has given his unqualified allegiance, have made him an outstanding advocate of the gospel of the Master. His faith and diligence have been rewarded by many marvelous and convincing testimonies confirming the divinity and genuineness of the message which he bears. That's quite high praise, particularly that half of that information was on how good of a speaker he is. Like, I mean, somebody can be a very, very powerful speaker without being a good person. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that he's both, but, you know, you never know. Melvin J. Ballard was born of sturdy immigrant pioneer parents and grew up in a home where faith, service, and sacrifice were effectively fostered and where all the rugged virtues that make for sound living were cultivated. His father, Henry Ballard, for almost 40 years Bishop of the Logan Second Ward, came from London, arriving in Utah in 1852, and was one of the outstanding pioneers of Cache Valley. He was a man of sterling integrity and unconquerable faith. His mother, Margaret McNeill Ballard, of Scotch descent, was a woman of most extraordinary character and leadership, who served as president of the Relief Society of the same ward for 30 years. One need only scan the life of this inspired and intrepid soul to understand the source from which Apostle Ballard received his finest inheritance, for many of his outstanding characteristics were clearly shown in the life of his good mother. Her family left the native country Scotland when she was 10 years of age, 1856, and arrived in Ogden, Utah on the 4th day of October, 1859. After a journey marked with extreme hardship and suffering, she says, "I walked every step of the way across the plains and drove a cow, and a large part of the way carried my brother James on my back." Wow. James was 5 years of age, and she only 13. Wow. Permeating this life of sacrifice is a spirit of gratitude and a quality of faith which mark her as a heroine. Melvin J. Ballard's life is an expression of the atmosphere of the home in which he was reared. Every morning and every night his parents and their children knelt. Every day they sought to live the religion of him to whom they prayed. From firesides such as this have come men and women who made America great, and who have furnished the faith and sinew and leadership of this church. The faith which warmed their hearts and glowed in their firesides is the faith that has conquered the wilderness and the waste places, and made the desert smile with plenty. Melvin J. Ballard learned from his cradle the lessons of service and sacrifice. They are a part of his very nature. As a deacon he chopped wood for the widows, cared for the meeting house, and performed errands of mercy and sacrifice for the president of the Relief Society, his mother, and for the bishop of the ward, his father. As a teacher and afterwards as a priest, he magnified his calling and did it with a cheerfulness and efficiency that won the confidence of his leaders and the love of the people. All his life he has been a cheerful worker. No idle day can be charged against him. The lineage of idleness is never long nor strong, but the rewards of diligence are everlasting. Few men of his age have given more generously of their time and talents to their church and to their people. His service has always been of a superior quality and has often been given at the price of personal sacrifice. Any great cause calls for sacrifice, and those who pay this price never waver in their allegiance to it. Somehow, sacrifice is the price of the most precious things in all human experience. The names history cherishes are the names of men of this type. Only a man too simply great to achieve for his proper self is great enough to live forever. One philosopher has said how studiously many men sink into nameless graves, while a few forget themselves into immortality. That's kind of cool, which I would echo, except for the fact that he's basically been forgotten today. So I wish that were true, but it's not. To be fair, it's been over 100 years since he was born, so 150 I think is closer. Anyway, there's a picture. This is Martha A. Jones Ballard. I'm assuming that is his wife. This is, in brief, the chronicle of his life. He was born February 9th, 1873 in Logan, Cache County, Utah. His boyhood days were spent on the farm doing the common work incident to farming. He attended the public schools of Logan and the Brigham Young College, from which institution he was graduated in 1894, and after graduation became a member of the faculty and taught music in that institution. Oh, so if he was musical, that would explain why he was singing all the time in conference. On June 17, 1896, he married Martha A. Jones, and in less than 3 weeks' time thereafter was set apart as a missionary to labor with elders B. H. Roberts and George D. Piper, who were holding meetings in the large cities in the United States. He continued in this special missionary service for several months. When Elder Roberts and Piper were released, he remained and was assigned to the Northern States Mission, where he labored as a missionary until December 1898. Upon his return home, he became actively engaged in business and assisted in organizing the Logan Knitting Factory, and was also prominent among the organizers of the Logan Commercial Club, serving for 2 terms as its president and as a director. He served for 6½ years as counselor in the bishopric in the Logan 2nd Ward, and for 2 years as high counselor in the Cache Stake. He soon became recognized as a speaker of exceptional ability, and his services were in constant demand. In the winter of 1902 and 1903, he was called on a short-term mission to Boise, Idaho, where he assisted Elder Joseph W. McMurrin in organizing the scattered saints living in that locality into a branch of the church. This resulted subsequently in the organization of the Boise Stake of Idaho. He was not only actively engaged in religious and business matters when at home, but he was also active in a civil capacity, serving as city councilman of Logan. For many years he was chorister of the Logan 2nd Ward, and for 17 years was chairman of the Cache Stake Tabernacle Choir. During this time he was instrumental in securing a pipe organ for the Logan Tabernacle. So here's some more pictures. Henry Ballard, that's his father. Margaret McNeil Ballard, I'm skipping over one, is his mother, and then in between is a picture of Melvin J. Ballard as a young man. Okay. He always had his hair swept back. I think that's just his style. The Ballard family about 15 years ago. So he has quite a few children then. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If those are all his children, then I count 7. Yeah? I don't know how accurate that is, though. It could be that one of them is his wife and not his child, because I'm not sure about the woman standing next to him. Versus the woman sitting down. Yeah? Like one of them is his wife. I don't know which one. The other one is either one of his children or his mother. Which is silly, because the pictures back then you couldn't actually tell. I hope they clarify. 7 children? Question mark. Although one of them is M. Russell. I don't know which one. I mean, gotta be, right? One of the 4 boys I count? So, we'll see. On April 6, 1909, he was set apart to preside over the Northwestern States Mission with headquarters at Portland, Oregon. He was then in his 36th year. Yeah, that's why I remembered him as having something to do with missionary work, because I've seen him in previous conferences speaking as a mission president. The mission president spoke a lot back then. He was then in his 36th year. He had already filled 2 missions and had a large and varied experience at home, so that he was eminently fitted for this responsible position. The entire mission soon felt the quickening power of his vitalizing touch, and from the zeal which burned in his own soul he kindled the same fire in the hearts of his missionaries. His devotion soon won their affection, and likewise the esteem of the people with whom he mingled. He did a memorable work in this field, and distinguished himself as a leader, as an administrator, as an advocate, and as a defender of the faith. During this time he had 555 missionaries. Wow, that's a lot. I think there were 200 missionaries in my mission. The saints erected 15 chapels. Wow. And the mission made great progress. He had presided there for nearly 10 years when he was called to the apostleship, January 7th, 1919. His mother had been dead less than 9 months when this call came to him. For years she had carried in her heart the sweet assurance that someday her son Melvin would be numbered among the chosen apostles. I wonder why. This was revealed to her before he was born, and she went to her grave with this assurance unfulfilled. Really? Had she lived a few months longer, this would have been confirmed. No earthly joy would have meant more to her. I wonder if they found it in her journals or if she had always told him that. This divine assurance was given not only his mother, but was given to Melvin as well, in a patriarchal blessing pronounced upon his head when he was 9 years of age. Geez, they gave it young back then. This was a remarkable blessing which had been literally and gloriously fulfilled, but more remarkable still was a testimony given to him 2 years before his call to the apostleship came. Speaking of it at the time he was called, he says, "I know, as I know that I live, that this is God's work. I have no more doubt about it than I have that I exist. I remember one little testimony among the many testimonies which I have received. You will pardon me for referring to it. 2 years ago, about this time, I had been on the Fort Peck Indian Reservation for several days with the brethren, solving the problems connected with our work among the Lamanites. Many questions arose that we had to settle. There was no precedent for us to follow, and we just had to go to the Lord and tell him our troubles and get inspiration and help from him. On this occasion I had sought the Lord, and that night I received a wonderful manifestation and an impression which has never left me. I was carried to this place, the temple, into this room. I saw myself here with my brethren, and I was happy. I was told there was one other privilege that was mine, and I was led into a room where I was informed I was to meet someone. As I entered the room, I saw, seated on a raised platform, the most glorious being I have ever conceived of, and was taken forward to be introduced to him. As I approached, he smiled, called my name, and stretched out his hands towards me. If I live to be 1,000,000 years old, I shall never forget that smile. He put his arms around me and kissed me. As he took me into his bosom, and he blessed me until my whole being was thrilled. As he finished, I fell at his feet, and there saw the marks of the nails. And as I kissed them, with deep joy swelling through my whole being, I felt that I was in heaven indeed. The feeling that came to my heart then was, oh, if I could live worthy, though it would require 80 years, so that in the end, when I have finished, I could go into his presence and receive the feeling that I then had in his presence, I would give everything that I am and ever hope to be. That is incredible. So he literally had a vision of the Savior. That's crazy. I mean, how many people can say that? I know I can't. Wow. I've just taken that in. Here's a couple pictures. Elder Wells and Ballard in South America. Elder Wells. Is that Daniel H. Wells? Junius Wells. I'm not sure. Elder and Mrs. Ballard on the summit of Hill Cumorah. Sightseeing, I guess. Elder Ballard by an image in South America. Yeah, there's all sorts of cool things out there. At the April conference of 1920, speaking of the resurrection of Christ, Elder Ballard said, "He rose from the dead and came forth in splendor, a resurrected, immortal, and eternal being. He then arose to the height of power, of glory, and of majesty, and became the master of all things, even death yielding to him. We rejoice in the witness we have that Jesus taught the truth, that the testimony of his disciples concerning his resurrection is the truth. We also know that the testimony of Joseph Smith and his brethren who looked upon the face of the Redeemer is true. I bear witness that I know what they have said is the truth. I know as well as I know that I live and look into your faces that Jesus Christ lives, and he is the Redeemer of the world, that he arose from the dead with a tangible body, and still has that real body which Thomas touched when he thrust his hands into his side, and felt the wounds of the spear and also the print of the nails in his hands. I know by the witness and revelations of God to me that Thomas told the truth. I know that Joseph Smith told the truth, for mine eyes have seen, for in the visions of the Lord, to my soul, I have seen Christ's face. I have heard his voice. I know that he lives, that he is the Redeemer of the world, and that he arose from the dead as a tangible and real individual. So shall all men rise in the resurrection from the dead. Era, Part 2, Volume 27, page 942. That's quite a strong testimony as well. I mean, it sounds like he had a really strong testimony of Jesus Christ. Like, really strong. From the day of his call to the apostleship to the present time, he has, with marked ability and with signal devotion, carried forward the work given to him. On September 3rd, 1925, he was called in company with Rulin S. Wells, that's the Wells, and the late Ray L. Pratt to open a mission in South America. They set out on this historic journey on November 3rd, 1925, and sailed from New York on the 14th of that month, arriving in Buenos Aires on Sunday, December 6th. No missionary work had been done in South America. There were, however, 2 or 3 families of saints residing there who had come from Germany, who were at the wharf to welcome the brethren. One of the important duties they had been commissioned to perform was to dedicate that land for the preaching of the gospel. Accordingly, early in the morning of a beautiful summer day, December 25th, they held a sacred service in the grove of Weeping Willows, maybe? Continued on page 735. Weeping Willows, yeah, near the bank of the El Rio de la Plata River in the secluded place in the Parque 3 de Ferrara, Buenos Aires, Argentina. I'm sure that means something to someone who lives there. After which Elder Ballard offered a fervent and beautiful prayer dedicating the great South American continent for the preaching of the gospel of Christ. This was a day never to be forgotten by these brethren. It was an event of momentous significance, for no doubt there are millions of people on the vast continent who have in their veins the blood that believes. The brethren pursued the work they had been sent to do with great diligence, baptized several converts, organized a Sunday school and a branch of the church, and established a mission with headquarters at Buenos Aires. Owing to ill health, Elder Wells was obliged to return home in February 1926. Elders Ballard and Pratt remained until the latter part of July of that year, when they were released. They were permitted by the First Presidency to return through the Indian countries of South America. Oh, so they went overland back home. That's quite a journey. Their journey led them to the northern part of Argentina, where they saw hundreds of thousands of native Indians, who were engaged in raising barley, corn, potatoes, cattle, and sheep. The high and broad plateaus of the Andes Mountains are covered with small farms occupied by these industrious and peace-loving Indians. The elders were not only interested in the natives who belonged to the house of Israel, no doubt, but they were greatly interested in the ancient ruins of this land, which seemed directly to support and corroborate the Book of Mormon. Elders Ballard and Pratt reached home with the satisfaction of having completed successfully a great mission, and no doubt the establishment of our missionary system in that land will ultimately mean a very great deal. This is the 4th mission which Elder Ballard has filled. In fact, he has labored 14 years as a missionary, besides the vast work which he has done among the various stakes of Zion. He is associated with Apostle George Albert Smith in the General Superintendency of the YMMIA. His vision of this work, the place of recreation in its program and in the program of the church, coupled with his zeal and ability to promote any good cause, has made him an outstanding factor in this great organization. His apostolic duties require his absence from home much of the time. Consequently, the responsibility of the family rests largely upon Mrs. Ballard, who is a brilliant and attractive woman of boundless energy, and with a great devotion to her husband and children. During his first mission, she supported herself and Babe, and helped to maintain him by teaching school. Good for her. She has sought in every way to promote his interests, and has constantly inspired him to make the most of his splendid endowments. Energetic, generous, and motherly, she has not only cared for her own family, but will long be remembered by the missionaries of the northwestern states, who labored during Brother Ballard's presidency for the comfort and encouragement which she gave them. Brother and Sister Ballard have reared a family of 8 children. Okay, Melvin Russell, yeah, M. Russell Ballard. They misspelled Russell, though. Lucille, Kenneth A., deceased. Rulin Joseph, okay. Louis McNeil, Mary Ruth, Margaret, and Mac J. Ballard. These children are full of energy and enterprise, and have a strong admiration for their father and an equal admiration for their mother. As we have indicated, he taught music in the Brigham Young College for 2 years, and no doubt he could have made a career for himself in this field had he devoted himself to it. He has a superior voice and a fine appreciation of the best there is in music. All of this greatly augmented his work as a missionary, often opening the doors and touching the hearts of those who could be approached in no other way. He is chairman of the Music Committee, which has done some commendable work for the advancement of music throughout the church. Courses for choristers and organists have been under the direction of this committee. The Latter-day Saint Hymn Book and Deseret Anthems in 3 volumes have been prepared and issued under their direction. If one would catch inspiration from contact with one of the purest, ablest, and most inspiring men, let him study the career and emulate the example of Apostle Melvin J. Ballard, who, by endowment, training, and experience, is most admirably fitted for leadership in these modern days, and among a strong and progressive people. Nothing daunts his splendid courage, how mightily he labors for the cause he loves. He has a brilliant and resourceful mind, a responsive heart, with hands strong and quick to help. The strength of his faith, the power of his testimony, his exemplary life have influenced the youth and manhood of this church in a way never to be forgotten. He has found his place and is doing his work. It is a great and good work, and he is doing it superbly. His name will shine forever in the archives of this people, and an inspired and gifted ambassador of our Lord and Master. Wow. I'm sorry, I was kind of really deep into it at that point. So, like, all of his travels in South America, like, that was really fascinating, talking about how much he loves music and how he has a really nice singing voice. Like, I really liked that. That was really cool. I don't think I knew how musical he was. Apparently he studied music. Alright. I was pretty sure he wrote a book, but let me see if I can find it. Okay. Melvin Joseph Ballard, February 9th, 1873 to July 30th, 1939, was a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS Church. His grandson, I thought it was his son. His grandson, M. Russell Ballard, also became an apostle. Yep. Who passed away not too long ago. Death in 2023. I didn't specify, this is from Wikipedia. I like to use Wikipedia as a second source. If you don't like my second source, find your own. This is a YouTube video. It is not a scholarly article, and therefore I consider it good enough. It's not too long. I think I'll just read through it. And then I want to do a little tribute to him, because I find him really interesting. Birth and early life. Ballard was born at Logan, Utah Territory, to Henry Ballard and Margaret McNeil. His father was a native in England and had emigrated to Utah in 1852 to gather with the Latter-day Saints. Henry Ballard had been aboard the Saluda when it exploded in Lexington, Missouri, and was injured in the incident. He later served under Porter Rockwell in the Nauvoo Legion when it made efforts to prevent the entry of Johnston's army into Utah Territory. In 1858, Henry was the first settler of Logan, and he served as bishop of the Logan Second Ward from 1861 until 1900. Interesting. Prior to Ballard's birth, his mother had an experience that led her to believe her son would be an apostle. In Ballard's patriarchal blessing, this was reaffirmed. Ballard attended Brigham Young College. He graduated in 1884. Career in early church service. In June 1896, Ballard married Martha A. Jones. The following month, he left with B.H. Roberts and George D. Piper on a mission to the large cities of the eastern United States. He was later reassigned to the Northern States Mission. Ballard returned to Utah in December 1898. In 1899, Ballard organized the Logan Knitting Factory along with Joseph E. Cardin. In 1900, he became a counselor in the bishopric in the Logan Second Ward. Mission President. Ballard served for several years as president of the Northwestern States Mission of the Church. While serving in this capacity, he organized missionary work on some of the Native American reservations in Montana. Apostleship. When new church president Heber J. Grant was pondering whom to call as an apostle to replace the vacancy caused by the death of his predecessor, Joseph F. Smith, he decided to select his good friend Robert Whitehead Young, as many suspected he would. As Grant met with the Quorum of the 12 Apostles to announce his decision, he found himself saying that the Lord wanted Melvin J. Ballard to serve in the position. Grant used this experience to teach about Revelation and to testify that the Lord gives inspiration to the president of the church. That's cool. I've actually heard that story, but not specifically who it was about. So that was Heber J. Grant who wanted... Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. Heber J. Grant wanted to call Robert Whitehead Young as an apostle. And as he was doing it, he suddenly found himself calling Melvin J. Ballard. That's interesting. So that's a true story. I actually thought that that was apocryphal, but that's cool. All right. Ballard was ordained an apostle and became a member of the Quorum of the Apostles on January 7th, 1919. As an apostle, Ballard opened up missionary work in South America in 1925 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Ballard served in the Quorum until his death in Salt Lake City from leukemia. Okay. Sylvester Q. Cannon was called to fill the vacancy caused by Ballard's death. Ballard was buried in Salt Lake City Cemetery. Published works, there we go. Melvin J. Ballard, Crusader for Righteousness. 3 Degrees of Glory, that's what it was. I knew that there was some book that he'd written. Okay, 3 Degrees of Glory, a Discourse. Deseret Book Company, 1922. Yeah, that was written by him. Biographies by others. Bryant S. Hinckley, Sermons and Missionary Service of Melvin J. Ballard. Okay. Being someone who studied music, I think that the most fitting tribute to him would be a song. So I don't want to sing anything that is super copyrighted. So I'm going to research a little bit and then I'm going to sing something that he enjoyed. So I'm thinking that we're going to pick the song that they quoted at the beginning. Just in case you're not familiar with the song, I don't have a problem singing that, so. It may not be on the mountain height or over the stormy sea. It may not be at the battle's front. My Lord will have need of me. But if by a still small voice he calls to pass that I do not know, I'll answer, dear Lord, with my hand in thine. I'll go where you want me to go. I'll go where you want me to go, dear Lord, over mountain or plain or sea. I'll say what you want me to say, dear Lord. I'll be what you want me to be. I just feel like I couldn't talk about Melvin J. Ballard being a musician and being a voice musician without singing. So forgive me for that personal side, but I really wanted to do that. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that you got something out of this one. And if you did, please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.